Look around you. In the subway, in the office, on a busy street. You see hundreds of faces, you hear dozens of languages. But from a biological point of view, we are standing in a room with mirrors. All 8 billion people on Earth belong to a single species, Homo sapiens. We think it was always this way. There are animals and there is us, the only masters of the planet. But this is the greatest illusion of our history. Quite recently, Earth resembled a world from The Lord of the Rings. The planet was simultaneously shared by at least 5, and maybe even 6 different species of intelligent humans. In Asia roamed the mysterious Denisovans, ghosts of whom only a finger phalanx and a couple of teeth remain. On the island of Flores, tiny hobbits hunted dwarf elephants, people standing no taller than a meter. And in the forests of Europe and the Middle East, they reigned supreme. Neanderthals. In pop culture, the Neanderthal is a hunched, hairy subhuman with a stupid expression. Forget this image. This is the propaganda of the victors. If you met a Neanderthal today in the gym, you would envy his physique. They were perfectly designed biological machines for survival in the Ice Age. Imagine a person about 165 centimeters tall, but weighing near 90 kilograms of pure muscle. Their bones were thicker than ours, like steel rebar, to withstand colossal loads. Their rib cage was barrel-shaped, housing huge lungs to greedily gulp thin, icy air. Even their faces were different. Huge noses worked like radiators, warming the cold air before it hit the lungs. If our Sapiens ancestor was like a light, endurance marathon runner, then the Neanderthal was a weightlifter sprinter, capable of explosive effort of monstrous power. And this strength was vitally necessary for them because of their hunting method. We, Sapiens, are cautious. We invented bows and spear throwers to kill prey from afar without risking ourselves. Neanderthals despised distance, or simply didn't know how to use it. Archaeologists studied their shoulder joints and realized they almost never threw spears. They used heavy, thick pikes to strike at point-blank range. Imagine that you need to kill a woolly rhinoceros or a mammoth by walking up to it within arm's reach. This was not a sport. It was a slaughter. When scientists analyzed injuries on Neanderthal skeletons, they were shocked. In the number of head and neck fractures, they match only one group of modern people: professional rodeo riders who fall off bulls. Every adult Neanderthal was a veteran with multiple fractures that had healed. And this tells us something important about them. Something we didn't expect from so-called beasts. In Shanidar Cave in Iraq, a skeleton of a man was found, whom archaeologists named Nandi. He was missing one arm, he was deaf in one ear, partially blind, and walked with difficulty. In the wild, such an individual is lunch for a predator. But Nandi lived like this for more than 10 years, dying a very old man. This means that someone chewed food for him, someone led him by the hand, someone protected him. Neanderthals had compassion. They cared for their own, not because it was profitable, but because they loved them. For a long time, it was believed that we invented art, but recently, cave paintings, 65,000 years old, were found in Spain. Sapiens were not in Europe yet. That means they drew this. They made jewelry from eagle claws, used feathers of birds of prey, and painted their bodies with ochre. They had their own style, their own fashion, and probably their own harsh gods. But their most important difference was hidden inside the cranium. Here is a fact that hurts our ego. The Neanderthal brain was larger than ours. On average, 1,500 cubic centimeters against our 1,350. But size is not the main thing. The main thing is structure. Their brains were elongated, with huge occipital lobes responsible for vision. They saw the world incredibly clearly, noticing the slightest movement in the twilight of European forests. But their frontal lobes, centers of communication and social ties, were smaller. Neanderthals were brilliant loners, or lived in tiny groups of 10-15 people. They rarely contacted neighbors. Introverts of the Stone Age. We, Sapiens, were chatty extroverts, capable of gathering in packs of 150 people or more. And when these two worlds collided, the inevitable happened. About 45,000 years ago, a wave of sapiens rolled over Europe. Historians for centuries painted pictures of a bloody race war. But genetics in 2010 told a different story. When our ancestors met these powerful, fair-skinned northerners, they didn't reach for spears. They felt interest, perhaps passion. We began to interbreed. It wasn't a mass phenomenon. Rather, chance meetings of Romeos and Juliets of different species. But the fruits of this love survived. If you are from Europe, Asia, or the Americas, congratulations, you are 2% Neanderthal. Only indigenous Africans whose ancestors did not go north remained purebred sapiens. We stole their biological superpowers, genes responsible for thick skin, thick hair, and, most importantly, immunity to Eurasian viruses. We survived in alien Europe only because we took part of their blood. But if they were so strong and smart, why am I telling this story today, and not them? Why did they disappear about 30,000 years ago? It wasn't war that killed them. They were killed by comfort and technologies they didn't have. Sapiens brought the sewing needle. We sewed tight-fitting parkas, pants, and hoods, creating a thermos effect. Neanderthals, it seems, simply threw hides over themselves like cloaks, tying them with knots. When the climate became sharply colder, the Sapiens thermos retained 20% more heat. In a world where every calorie counts, the sewing needle proved deadlier than the spear. There was another factor. There is a popular theory that we found an ally they missed: dogs. Around the same time, Sapiens began the process of domesticating wolves. Dogs helped us drive game, guarded our sleep, and carried loads. Hunting with dogs increases efficiency by 50%. Neanderthals, however, proudly hunted alone. And in hungry years, this technological gap could become a death sentence. Man with a dog defeated Superman. And finally, the finishing blow. The strike was delivered by Earth itself. About 39,000 years ago, an eruption of the supervolcano Campiflegrei occurred in Italy. It was a real end of the world. The sky over Europe was covered in ash for years. A volcanic winter set in. Neanderthals, who were already on the verge of extinction and lived at the very epicenter of the catastrophe, simply couldn't recover. Sapiens, whose main populations were in warm Asia and Africa, survived this blow and returned to the empty lands. The last Neanderthals lived out their days in southern Spain, looking at the Strait of Gibraltar. They left quietly, leaving neither pyramids nor books, but they didn't vanish without a trace. Today, more Neanderthal DNA lives on Earth than ever before in history. It is simply distributed inside us. Your ability to clot blood so a wound doesn't bleed is their gift. Your tendency toward allergies or even depression is possibly also an echo of their life in harsh conditions. We were left alone. We call ourselves the crown of creation. But sometimes, looking at the starry sky, we feel a strange longing. The longing of the only surviving child in a large family. We won not because we were better. We just got lucky. And now we bear responsibility not only for ourselves, but also for the memory of those who gave up their place at this fire to us.